Okay, we're gonna try this out. This is my first time actually posting a live video. I figured this might be a little faster than recording a video and then doing it later, so we'll try. So I'm just doing this to hopefully make it quicker to get the video uploaded. I'm gonna be, let me turn on the light. Okay. I'm gonna be framing my little minnow. That's what this design's called. It's called My Little Minnow, designed by Autumn Lane Stitchery. And it's got some sparkle to it. And so I found a frame at Goodwill. I'm going to be framing it without glass. So it's going to be framed in here. My husband was nice enough to go ahead and cut out the mat board for me. So first thing I'm going to do is move this out of the way. I'm going to get some pliers. So the backing to this is held together with staples. I can bend these, well, I might, okay, these staples are actually not too bad. I might actually leave them in here then. The other staples I had on the last frame I framed my nightingale in were a bit finicky. If they start breaking, I'll just pull them out and I'll use my other tool that I showed in the last video. So I'm gonna take the backing out. I'm taking out my Goodwill sticker so I don't forget to take it off later. Okay. Another thing I gotta do is take out the hanging hardware. I need a screwdriver. It's like stapled in, which is the first time I've seen that. Let's see if I take the glass out first. I might have to frame it with glass, unless I take the staples out. We'll try it with the glass then. But I definitely need to take this out if I want to back it. It's coming. Okay. Okay, they're not in there too. Because I'm going to back this with some backing paper. Okay. Well, those are pretty hard staples. I might just be able to nail it back in with the staples. But I do have some, like a little hanging hardware kit, and it's got nails in it. So I can use the nails to put them back in if the staples don't want to go back in. I don't know if I'll put both of these back here because this really only hangs one way. I might just put one of those and save the other one for later. Okay, so we have this part prepared. As you can see, I have not ironed this. I typically don't wash or iron my pieces, especially because this is on a hand-dyed fabric that I dyed myself. So I'm just going to be looking for the center on this. I'm gonna see if I can pull up the pattern. The easiest way I found to find the center is just look for the pattern and see where they locate the center on the chart. I could also measure this. I'm just going off of that. Okay, so the center for our chart . I guess I'll use my fancy counting things this time. It's right up here. It's right here. So that's the center top. And the center bottom. Right here. Then we're going to do the sides. There. Okay, so we have it centered. So I'm going to take my mat board. I'm going to lay this over it. I'm going to do an initial stretch to see about where I got this. Right where I need it to go. I'm probably going to go like maybe 2 inches above where the charting finishes. So we're going to pin this to the mat board. So I have a bunch of pins. I know there are some people who have their recommendations for like what type of pins they use. Some people like to use sequence pins, so they're like shorter pins. I don't really have a preference. A lot of the pins that I get are thrifted. I do try to make sure that they're like stainless steel, because at the very least they won't, oh, well, I forgot a step here. They won't rust. One thing that might be good to do is actually make sure that you have the center marked out on your mat board as well, which I have not done yet. So let me do that real quick. So this mat board is about 11 inches, not quite 11 inches. It's like 10 3/4. So we're gonna go 5, half. So let's go here. Mark this right here. And then we'll go this line the other way. Right there. And then lengthwise, squarely 14. So 7. Mark there. And on the other edge, make another mark at 7 over here. Okay, so we have it marked on the mat board. So now we're going to take our stitch piece and line up where that center is marked. And I said I was going to go 2. I think I find it easier to start with the longer side. Just readjusting my pins here. No, this one's probably where I want it. Okay. So lengthwise, I'm going to center this up with that mark that we just made in the back. So the pin's right there. And I want to stretch it 2 inches from where the stitching ends. So this is the bottom row of stitches here. So I'm going to go there and I'll take a pin. And 1, 2, right there. So I'm sticking this in the mat board on the side there. I'm going to just come back here. Yep, if you see there right there, that pin's right where that mark. So I'll press that down, and then we'll come over to the other side, and we'll do the same thing. So I have the counting pin that I can see, and I'm going to line it up, fold it over, and we want pin 2 stitches away from there. So the stitching ends right over here. So yep, that lined up perfect. You see the pin there with the mark that I made. So we'll tack that down. You don't have to push them. I typically don't bother about pushing all the way flush with the mat board until I finish all the way around, but I figure it's a good placeholder to have it there. And then we'll go ahead and get the other ends ready. This one, if I stretch it with my fingers, has a bit more showing on the sides. So I think I'm going to go with, what, there's like 6, 7, 8 stitches on the side. 2, 4, 6, 8. So we'll go 8 inches. So 8 inches, 8 squares. This is Aida fabric. I'm going to go 8, or maybe I should go where the frame, well, but the frame isn't consistent all the way from front to back on here. Or is it? Maybe it is. Let me see if I do it based off the frame, where that ends up. So this is actually now 9 stitches, and this is also 9 stitches. Okay, so we'll go 9 stitches from where the stitching, where this frame line here, there's like a straight line. This curves out. The straight line of the frame there, I'm going to base it off of that. 9 stitches from where that straight line is. So I'll count on the Aida. Nine stitches. So that's right there. So I marked 9 stitches with the first pin I'm going to put in here. And then I'm going to center that on that mark that we made for the middle on this side. And this one actually doesn't feel too tight, but it should tighten up. Let me do the other side. So then we're going to do this side. And this is a little easier to count 9 stitches off of. So right here is the 9 stitches from that center line. We're going to line that up, which where I have this here, press that down. So it feels nice and taut once I put those center lines in. So I feel like that's a good stretch. The good thing about stretching it and pinning it is that even if you don't iron it, I found that if you have any wrinkles or anything, they'll disappear after you finish completely pinning it, as long as you have it stretched out, you know, to a good bit. Okay, so what we're going to start doing is I'm going to go ahead and start with maybe the shorter sides first. And what I'm going to do is every inch or so, and I'm not going to necessarily measure that out. I'm just going to pull these out now that we have the center pinned, where they're not there destroying the fabric. I'm going to follow that line of the Aida where I have it pinned here, and every inch or so I'm going to stretch it over to the mat board and put a pin in. This one I might just put in halfway in, so that way it's still sticking out if I need to make any adjustments. And we'll start pinning this. So I'll put the next one in about there. And I shifted this line. Okay, let me go back and adjust it. So I went one line past it because this is stretched really tight, so it's kind of dragged it. So I'm adjusting the ones I placed. Okay, now they're on the same line. And then I'll pull this. Honestly, the longest part is just getting all the measurements, because this part is not too super tedious. So I go all the way to the edge, and then I leave like maybe a centimeter of the edge where I don't pin anything, and just leave it like that. Okay. I'm actually gonna move this one because we're about a centimeter out to the edge already, so I'm gonna go right here. I'll leave that there. So we did that one side, and if you follow along the line there, that's actually pretty, this is all straightened out here at the bottom now. So we're gonna go on this side, I'm gonna stretch this out, and see, you gotta kind of pull back the tension, because where it first was on the pin was a little scooched like that, so I pull it back to stretch it out to where I want it to be, and then we'll start putting in those pins about an inch spacing, just eyeballing it. You don't need to measure it out to be exact. Just putting them in halfway so I can adjust them if I need to. No, see, this is like a sequin pin. It's just kind of short. So this one. Actually, we have quite a few single pins in here. I didn't realize. This is like my overall general pin container. So there's all kinds of mixed match stuff in here. Yeah, this one I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna pull this over since we're getting close to the edge here. And we'll go right there. That's fine. The sequin pins I've actually kind of basically put flush because they're already kind of short. And then we'll do the other side, working our way out. There's a lot of different ways to finish a cross stitch, but unfortunately, because I work on so many big projects, I do end up framing a lot of them. I think there was one that I did for a friend. I did the Epic Pokemon cross stitch, by Lord Libidan, the first gen. I did that one and made it into a tapestry. And that one is kind of like, when you have it lengthwise, it is kind of a tricky situation to try to see. I did the same thing here, where I was off a line. So let's go back here, pull this back, adjust my pins. I was off just one square, and you want to try to. It is typically good to finish like this because you can really, it's easy to tell if you have everything lined up or not. You can line it up with the blocks. Sometimes the Nightingale was linen, right? So I had to be really, really careful about making sure I had the threads lined up to make sure it's stretched evenly. Okay, we'll do one more. Right here. Okay. So right there, I have the top and the bottom stretched. Now we're gonna do the same thing for the sides. These I have, okay, there we go. I just pull it back some to make sure I'm not letting it get loosey-goosey on me. Okay, this will be the last pin on this side. And we're going to do the other side, working our way from the center. Just making sure we're following that line. The good thing about doing this is if you ever need to adjust it, it's pretty easy to go back and move the pins a bit and make small adjustments as needed. Okay. See, that looks really nice. I don't have the other side pinned yet, but look at how, and this is already like, not that I had a bunch of wrinkles or anything, you know, to begin with, but it's already really making this nice and flat. So the last side, you're usually gonna have to do some adjusting because it's the most stretched. So I'm just having to really pull this back because I have this set pretty tight. This is Ada, so it's got a bit more structural integrity to it than if I was working with a linen. I might not pull it so tight. It also depends on the fabric. And maybe also on the stitch piece, depending on if you can notice any bulges or any... I think for my Nightingale, I had to get it pretty stretched, but it wasn't to the point where it was warping or anything. Which if you line up the threads when you're pinning this line here, which is what I'm trying to do. I hope I'm not moving out of the video too much. You can still see what I'm doing. But if you don't deviate too much, it's really hard not to get a straight look to your piece, you know, because those threads really help you line it up if you're working with any kind of even weave or okay, we're almost done with this side. So we got this side done, we just got this side left to do. And then we can look at where we're at. I'm pretty confident I'm not going to have to make any major adjustments to this. There. Almost to the end. I might just go ahead and just put one here, last one. Okay. And then I'm just gonna check this line. The last edge that you do is most prone to shifting because it's the most stretched. So I'm just going back and making sure. And some of these lines are like curving a bit into the edge. Oh, here, this one might have been too. No, this is the center line, yep. See, like this one, I didn't stretch it enough. Okay, so we're gonna go back and do that one line again. Yeah, these are all correct, but the ones over here, I think I did it a line down, so I'm gonna go back and just stretch it back one more square. Ooh, this is really stretching this one. I'm gonna go off screen for a second, and then I'll go back and show you where I'm at. Just need a little bit of leverage on this. So I really just use pinning for my bigger finishes, but I've seen people use it for smaller finishes too. Like if you want, it's really good, especially if you just want like a temporary finish to some of your smalls. Works pretty well. Last one. I don't know that any better than that. I'm gonna just leave that. Okay. So this is where we're at. So I know the top and the bottom I'm happy with. This is pretty fairly stretched. So I might decide to ease up on the sides here, because it's getting to the point where it looks like it might have been warping a little bit. So I'm going to ease up one line on one side and see what that looks like. And it helps me check that I have all my lines straight. Okay, so I think I did. You know, you think this might be a little easier to do if I had it under the light, huh? Okay, so I relaxed it one line. So that looks better. This straight line of the frame here, it's not as warped. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And relax it a line. And when I say a line, I'm talking about like one block of the Ada. If that's not clear. Okay. I think that worked. I think we had the sides a little too stretched out. So there's some... Yeah, I think that looks a lot better. So I like this. I like how we have it stretched out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a flat area like this, and I'm going to press all the pins in. Flush to the edge of the mat board so that they won't catch the edge of the frame when we go to put it in our frame. On this one. I just replace that one with a different pen. Okay, there we go. And we're there. Okay, so we have all the pins flushed. Now I'm gonna go back and put my pins back in my tin. I think the first couple times I tried framing, I didn't know anything about pinning, and I was trying to do something in a hurry. And I did end up washing the piece because I guess it was in the instructions. It was for a kit, and the instructions that recommended washing it. But I don't think I let it dry out enough. So I think it got a little mildewy in the frame because there's still moisture in the fabric. When I tried to just show it in the frame and do it like that. So I guess it's a good thing I don't wash my fabrics anymore. I'm just too impatient to let it dry out. Okay, so we're here, and then I'm gonna grab our frame. With these thrifted frames, sometimes it's good to take a look at them and see. Sometimes they have like this one has a little bit of a marking on the side here, but depending on what the frame looks like, you might have a preference on which side you want to be, the top of the frame versus the bottom. I think I'm actually gonna go with they look pretty even. I guess I'll just leave it like this. So this will be how our piece goes in. So I'm actually gonna take the edge of my blanket and go through here. Just try to wipe the glass some. And we're going to put this in. Now this might be where you find that some of the pins that you put in are not tamped down all the way. If you need to tamp them down a little bit more, you can. I'm wondering if these staples are going to be an issue, because I'm trying to get it in. Well, that side it doesn't seem to be having a problem. Is it the staples or is it the pins? We might be pulling out the staples. I think the staples are proving to be the problem. See if I can push them back a bit more. No. There we go. Okay. The staples are safe for now. Last time I didn't end up... What I usually do is I end up lacing the edges here. Last time I didn't end up doing it, and the backing still fit in. Okay. You know, we might need to take the backing... Well, no. Let me see. We'll see how the backing fits in this. Because I'm thinking there might not be room for it to go in with the bulk of the fabric. We will see here momentarily. So this is our backing. I've also had frames that don't come with a backing, so if you don't have a backing that comes when you thrift your frame, it's okay. I use the stapler to get those staples back down over the backing, and see if the staples are too thin. What they might do is they might break after being manipulated back and forth like that. It will weaken the metal. So we'll see. I'll do the top and then I'll come down here and try to do these bottom ones to at least kind of get it in place. Yeah, there's some bulk that's added by the fabric. But not too much that didn't work. Just go down here and tamp them down some more. So we have our backing in place. Then the last thing I'm going to do is put some backing paper on. I'm going to take first, I'm going to take some alcohol and a swab. I'm going to just wipe the edges of the frame and get any oily residue or anything off. I'm not going to try scrubbing, it's just a wipe, because if not, you're going to get all your flyaways from this on there. And then I'm going to try this out. This is the first time I've used this type of tape. It's just a double-sided permanent Scotch tape. But we'll see how this goes. I think, yeah, I think it's not too thick for this. This down. I think I'm going to use some craft scissors for this. Or no, I can use my X-Acto knife. Like this, which I was going to use to cut the paper, but this will work for this as well. I'll just score the edge of the tape there. And then we're going to do the other edge. I'm really trying to get the tape all the way up to the outer edge of the frame at the least. So when we put our backing paper on, it's pretty close to the edges there. The other thing I'm doing as I go is I'm taking the back of my nail and just making sure that it's flat against. We're going to be able to do that when we get the paper on there too, but I gotta remember to take this initial strip off. You'll be wondering why it's not sticky. It's because the protective film's still on it. Sorry about that. One side left too. Okay, well that should tell me. Let's try that again. try not to touch this too much with the pads of my fingers because I don't want to get all my oils on it. Leave some residue and then it won't be as sticky. Okay, and we're back to where we started. So going to score this. Going to remember to take Can you not remove this? Is this just part of the... Well, I guess so. Maybe that's just part of the banding. Maybe we'll have to put a separate strip here. It doesn't look like this is backing paper that I'd take off. Okay, so... that away. Come back here. Score this. Okay, so we have all four sides that have sticky tape. What I'm using as backing paper is just like this brown. I don't know if it's packaging paper. I just have a little roll of it, so just roll lengthwise. So I'm gonna put the straight side on it. Flatten that side down. Come here. Flatten this side down. So this side and this side are right up to the edge of that paper. And then what I'm going to do is, it's not some more. I'm going to smooth this down. Same trying to smooth both edges down to get this. Got a bit of a wrinkle there, but that's okay. To center edge the paper there. Okay, so this is backed. So then I'm going to take the edge of my nail and just score it to the edge there. Do the same thing with this side. Just score the very edge of where the end of the frame is. And then we're going to take... Ooh, okay, not the screwdriver. X-Acto knife. I'm going to take the very edge. And just get the edge of the paper like this. Cut a clean line across. So do the same thing over here. So we've cut across the edge. There's a little bit of excess there. I don't think I'm gonna worry about. Well, I could trim that a little bit, I guess. Be careful with your fingers. This is sharp. Do not do this. Unsupervised. All the disclaimers. It pays to be safe when you're crafting. I think that's okay. Nope. Don't think I'm gonna bother worrying about that little bit left. So this is how my mermaid looks My little Minnow, all framed up. Looks so pretty. I like how it looks in that frame. It's just, I think maybe it's the size of the fabric that I use, but it's just the right size to fit into this frame. And this is I feel like I gave measurements at the beginning maybe when we were taking measurements of the mat, but this is a 10.5 by 14, it looks like, frame. It might have been matted originally, but the way when I got it in Goodwill, there wasn't anything in it. It's just like this. There wasn't even a picture. It was just a typical frame. So yep, that's it. The last step would be to put the backing. Ooh, I just knocked the camera. Sorry about that. The last step would be to put the backing hardware back on. I would just, so make sure you know how you want your piece to hang. So it's hanging, this would be the top side. I'm actually going to move that to be the bottom. Well, maybe. I'll leave it like this, so at least. So again, this is where we want it direction-wise. So you want it to be here. You want to make sure you know where the actual wood of your frame is. I've done that in the past where I try to accidentally put it in and I ended up going inside the paper instead of into the wood. So make sure you take note of that. I'm just going to measure back here. It's like a little more than 12. It's like 12 inches. It's a foot and a quarter. Well, not a quarter inch. It's like a foot and then maybe half a centimeter. So I'm just going to go into where it's 6 inches is. And maybe put a little bit more than that. We'll mark here. So that center line, and I can actually mark the bottom of where the frame is. So between those two lines, and I want it centered there. So you see that. Whenever you're hanging this, you always want those teeth to be facing to the inside of your frame, because when you hang it, right, if it's hanging on any kind of nail or anything, that's where it's going to grip those teeth right there. So this kind of actually has a center line marked here. I don't know if somebody did that with a nail, or if it came like that, but that's handy. And so I would just line it up here, and I would use a hammer to try to hammer the staples back in. Did I bring a hammer out here? No. If the staples did not work, I would use my pliers to remove the staples, or I might just throw this away, right? Like if I can't remove the staples, if I can't do anything with this, you can buy some extra hanging hardware here. Like this is another sawtooth. This one's a bit wider. I have some ones that are bigger, wider that I could use too. But there's different hanging hardware that you can use. You can also use wire if you wanted to hang it up. There's different ways to hang up your picture. I typically like to use whatever the picture came with, so I'm going to end up hammering in this later. I might get my husband's help when he gets home to make sure I got enough force in there to have the staples bite back into the wood. But yeah, and I'm probably just going to put this one. This one had two. I guess I'm thinking it was probably like a store you buy, a frame you bought in the store, so they had it on both sides, the short end and the long end, just in case you wanted, depending on what you wanted to frame in it. But I'm just gonna, you know, I already have this framed, so I'm just gonna put it on this side, and I gotta put the second one back on there. So yeah, and the last thing that I put that I don't have out here again, but I did put it on my other frame, is you can get those small circular feet. You use them a lot, like in your kitchen cabinets, to like keep the doors from just slamming back on there. You can find them in the kitchen area, hardware area. And Lowe's. They're just little like felt. You can get them as felt or as plastic feet. I like to get like the plastic feet just because I feel like those last longer. The felt eventually gets like kind of squished. I think they have like the corky ones too. They got kind of smooshed. So I like getting like the clear plastic looking ones. And I'll usually put them at the bottom of wherever it's going to hang. So if the hanging hardware is up here and you're going to be nailing it and then hanging it off of this side, I'll put it at the bottom here, because this will be the side of the frame that's resting against the wall after you have it hanging from the nail up here, right? There have been some frames that are substantially big enough to where if I feel like maybe the top corners would also touch the wall, and you don't want it to like bang into the wall, I put little of those little feet on all 4 corners as well. But yeah, super quick, super easy. This took, you know, 51 minutes because I'm trying to explain and like film things, but typically when I'm doing this on my own, it doesn't take too long. Especially, I think the longest part is just trying to find a good frame. Hadn't had any issues, and I found some really, really nice frames for pretty cheap at Goodwill or other thrift stores. And you can get them for a fairly decent price. This one I think was $6 at Goodwill. If you get it for when they're having a sale, might even be less than that. There's other places where I've gotten really nice ornate frames for $10 compared to what you might have to buy it brand new at some of the other stores. So keep that in mind if you want to save some money. I didn't have a mat on this one, but I mentioned it in the other framing video. If you ever wanted to mat your pieces, you can go to Hobby Lobby or Michael's if you don't necessarily have a framing store, but they're really good about if you give them the dimensions of the frame, and you kind of have to, I try to do all the measuring out myself. If you wanted some help, I mean, none of the staff there have ever been like unfriendly or like impatient with me when I've asked them questions, so I don't see why they wouldn't, why would they would have an issue trying to help you out. But if you want to go ahead and just take the measurements of your frame, I'll usually go ahead and stretch it out and then see what it looks like stretched out, and then see like where the gap is to think about what thickness of mat that I want on all sides. And you can either give them the dimensions of your frame and then tell them what thickness you want, or you can try to take measurements based off of your matting, like the mat board that I have, which is what fits inside the frame, right? And if you take measurements inside, you can kind of see it and see what kind of gauge you want and measure out what the thickness is you want that it covers all sides. I think there was one that I did that was fairly large, so I wanted a mat because I needed a fairly big frame, but the stitching was just a tad, because I had, like, this was a really big piece, but it was from a kit, so, and it didn't give me a lot of free fabric on the sides. I didn't really have a lot of I don't know what that's called, but you know, like to finish it. I didn't have, like, the stitching was almost right up to the edging, so I didn't have a lot of room to work with. So I actually did end up having to get a mat, and also I was thrifting a bigger frame. I wasn't getting a custom frame for it. So just a combination of factors. I did get a mat, and it was thinner on the bottom than it was on the sides, so I kind of had to like try to measure it out plainly, and then measure out, like, I basically, what I did is I stretched it out, and then I measured what the stitched area was. And so what my measured stitched area was, I told them, hey, I have this size frame and I need this, the stitched area, right? So like if it was this, my stitched area would be, we'll say 10 inches by 13.5. Like I need a 10.5 or 10 by 13.5 centered rectangle cut out of this size frame. And you can, I think the one time I did that, I went through their matting selections, but you can also ask them, because sometimes they'll have more options in the back, to pick your color and then ask them what you want them to cut out, and that'll run you maybe 20-40 bucks. Mine was fairly big. I think mine ended up being $48, but it's still cheaper, you know, by the time I thrifted it and everything, cheaper than having it professionally framed where they have to do all the work, right? So it's just some things to think about and keep in mind if you're just trying to finish your things, you know, in a more cost-effective, minded way. I like to spend more of my money on the designs and the materials for the stitching rather than the finishing. So to each their own personal preference. Well, hopefully this was interesting. Hopefully this will upload fairly easily. We'll see. This is my first time recording a live video. If this goes well, I might try a live stitch with me. We'll see. And maybe next time I'll give some more advance notice if anybody wants to pop in and ask questions or engage. Okay, bye.